Hi guys, Belarus forced down the plane to seize dissident. That's a super interesting story and Western media omits most of the details, so I will tell you more and explain you why it's a little bit controversial. Just a quick recap. On May 23 there was a flight from Athens to Vilnius, and on board there was a guy called Roman Protasevich, who is a co-founder of opposition Belarusian Telegram channel Nechta. When the plane was in Belarusian airspace, the local Belarusian air traffic control told the pilots that apparently there is a bomb on board and they need to divert and land in Minsk, Belarus. According to Western media, the plane was forced to land with the jet fighter. According to other sources, actually it was the sole pilot's decision. We will get into that in just a little bit. When the plane landed in Minsk, they arrest Roman and his girlfriend, and then they search for the bomb for 6 hours, and then finally the plane continued its journey. It's pretty clear that the whole story was made up, and they actually told us that it was the email from Hamas which asked Israel to stop the war in Gaza, despite the fact that they actually made a ceasefire just several days ago. But you know, terrorists could have amnesia as well. So the only reason of that disgraceful act is to arrest Roman. And crazy Belarusian dictator Lukashenko is 100% behind that. If you don't know anything about Belarus, basically Lukashenko is a way more miserable version of Vladimir Putin. His propaganda is way more crude, and he actually falsified and lost the recent election, claiming that he got like 80% of the votes, and in reality he got probably like 20% of the votes, and people started to protest, and all these protests were violently suppressed. His recent nickname is Agroführer because of his unexplainable passion to agriculture and his Hitler-like mustache. Now there is a super interesting story which Western media completely omits, is how Lukashenko came up with this idea to hijack the plane. So, back in August 2020, one day before the Belarusian election, 33 members of Russian paramilitary organization called Wagner Group was staying in the hotel near Minsk. These are basically paid fighters which Russia sends to Syria, Venezuela, Ukraine, or even Central African Republic to do some really dirty jobs. So paranoid dictator Lukashenko quickly arrested these guys and claimed that Russia was planning a coup against him, and the whole purpose of this group is to make a civil unrest after the elections. There were many conspiracy theories why these guys actually were there, but after half a year, the craziest conspiracy theory got confirmed. Basically, it was a secret operation of Ukrainian special forces. Some of the 33 guys were actually participating in the war in Ukraine back in 2014 on the separatist side. Ukrainian secret agents promised Wagner Group good money if they come to Venezuela and support pro-Maduro regime. Due to the coronavirus, all the flights out of Moscow were cancelled, but you can always take a train and come to Belarus, and then you can fly from Minsk to Istanbul and then from Istanbul to Caracas. And the plan was that when the flight from Minsk to Istanbul will enter to Ukrainian airspace, they will call to the pilots and tell that there is a bomb on board and they have to land in Kiev for special checkups, and then they would arrest all these Wagner fighters and bring them to justice, and basically the rating of the local president will go up. At the very end, unfortunately, they decided to postpone this operation and nothing actually happened, and that was the reason why these guys were actually staying in that hotel near Minsk. Some Ukrainian officials bragged about this story on TV and actually claimed that US was aware of this operation and supportive. We can assume that Belarusian dictator got inspired by that story. If they can do something like this, why can't I? Now let's return to whether the flight was forced to land with the jet fighter or it was the pilot decision. There is a transcript of air traffic control released by Belarusian side, and we have flight radar data, so the guys from Media Zone made a detailed picture of what was actually happened. As soon as the plane went into Belarusian airspace, air traffic control said that there might be a bomb on board. Just a minute later, the pilot asked about new route from the air traffic. Then the pilot asked where this information is coming from, and air traffic replied that several airports received those kind of emails. Then there was a 5-minute pause, and we can assume that pilot actually called to Ryanair and negotiated what he's supposed to do next. Then the pilot asked who made this recommendation to land in Minsk, and they replied that it's their own recommendation. Then the pilot asked about IATA danger code, and the reply was red. Red means that they know exact means and goals of attack, and the source of information is completely trusted. Obviously it was false, but at that point, after 14 minutes since the first conversation, the pilot decided to make U-turn and land in Minsk. What is crucial here that the plane was still going at the cruising altitude of 39,000 feet, despite only 65 kilometers to the original airport, which means that they were not planning to land in Vilnius, at least on the first round. I've checked other days on flight radar, and this plane was actually descending down way before the Lithuanian border. Then, 18 minutes after the decision to land in Minsk, the jet fighter actually took off and started to escort the plane. I know it looks pretty strange, but that's how the security procedures in Belarus seems to work. But the most important, the jet fighter has nothing to do with the decision of the plane to land in Minsk. Now the most interesting and shocking part of that story is actually the past of that arrested dissident Roman Protasevich. And I want to be clear that I fully support the Belarusian rights to overthrow a bloody and retarded dictator, but as a fair journalist I need to give you the full picture. So apparently Roman participated in the same Ukrainian war back in 2014 on the Ukrainian side. So there was a Ukrainian paramilitary unit called Azov. If you're confused why it's all about paramilitary thing, not the regular army, basically the reason is that it's much cheaper to use paramilitary in the modern hybrid wars because you can do whatever you want, you can always claim, oh, it's not us, and also you can hire any foreign nationals. With a quick check on Wikipedia, you can see that this is mostly a neo-Nazi unit. You can clearly see the logo, which reminds Hitler SS. These amazing people published a newspaper called The Black Sun. Again, quick Wikipedia checks tell you that that was the name of one of the Nazi newspaper. And on front of this newspaper in July 2015, we can see an 18 years old young guy who looks like Roman. Let's have a quick look inside. It's in Ukrainian, but I will translate you. First, they're complaining that US Congress, although originally planned to financially support Azov, decided not to do this because of allegedly neo-Nazi fashion of this organization. The author argues that it's not true, claiming that the flag of Vermont state actually contained the same elk as the 31st Division of SS. Then there is also a whole page against LGBT pride. It's called Trojan Horse of Cultural Marxism. Inside this article, homosexuality is described as a disease and that they want to introduce it to destroy Ukrainian nation. Lots of weirdest bullshit. There is an interview with Nationalist. What is your opinion about European Union in the current military conflict? And the answer is like, European Union is like a passive homosexual, blah, 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 blah. They really have a fixation on LGBT. Anyway, how do we know that this is the guy? Well, the leader of Azov actually confirmed on his Telegram channel that Roman joined the battalion from the very beginning and he actually got an injury in one of the battles called Shirokino, but he never fought with the gun, he fought with the word because he is a journalist. The problem is that no one can find any of his sharp word during that period, only pictures like that. There is also an article from Belarusian newspaper called Nasha Niva from 2015 about a Belarusian guy in Ukrainian Azov with nickname Kim. And a very familiar picture. He's telling us that he joined Azov since the very beginning, that Russia is the common enemy of Belarus and Ukraine, and it's important to fight it, how he got injury in Shirokino, which we already mentioned. There is a very little doubt that this is Roman. And finally, you can see this photo. Here, Roman with one of his neo-Nazi buddy from Belarus who came to fight in Azov as well. His name is Stanislav Goncharov and nickname Terror Machine. We can only guess how this guy got this exuberant nickname, but you can also see this amazing photo depicting some of his tattoos with some scenes from Second World War. Probably he's just a fan of history. And of course, it doesn't really prove that Roman is neo-Nazi, just an interesting fact. Now my question is, Roman was openly fought against Russian separatists as a foreign nation in a Ukrainian paramilitary unit, which is fine with me, but maybe not so cool in terms of international law. He got an asylum in Poland and started a very important Telegram channel which played a crucial role in after-election protests in Belarus, which I 100% support. Unfortunately, revolution failed and Lukashenko won, and Roman knew that he is being hunted by Russians and Belarusians. Was it that hard to anticipate that something like this can actually happen? Now, how would US or EU react in the same situation? And it was a very similar case during the Obama era, when Snowden was in the international airport in Moscow trying to get some asylum, and it was unclear whether he's gonna get it in Russia or somewhere else. And at some point, intelligence thought that Snowden is actually flying with the Bolivian president Evo Morales. When the presidential flight was flying over Austria, the neighboring 4 countries decided to close the airspace, effectively forced the plane to land in Vienna. Then Austrian prime minister had to come and apologize because they couldn't find any Snowden, and it was kind of a big scandal. And again, I don't like communist president Evo Morales, nor I'm very excited about Snowden, but this situation is pretty much the same. Don't you think so? This by any meaning doesn't cancel the main problem, that we have Lukashenko, who is a crazy dictator and he's 100% supported by Russia. And he doesn't care about any sanctions because Russia will compensate everything for his loyalty. And I think he's actually pretty happy that European Union decided not to fly through Belarus. That's what dictator wants. He actually wants his people to stay within his country. Thanks for watching, don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next time. Bye!